Welcome to the Female Dating Strategy Podcast, the meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I am your host, Savannah, without my lovely host, Ro, again. But today, I am joined by one of our fabulous potential co-hosts, Rose, who is joining me today to discuss ins and outs of 2024. Hello, Rose. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here, Savannah.
I'm delighted to have you. Like, when we were planning this episode just off the cuff before we started recording, I was getting really, really excited to do this episode. So, before we get into it, Rose, do you want to tell us a bit more about your FDS journey and why you decided to apply to become a host?
Thank you for asking. Yes, I would love to tell you about this journey of mine. This has been a life-changing journey. I think I was the ultimate pick-me before I ever knew what that term meant. And in fact, I'm a bit of an old school, born in the early 80s girly. And so I was really much more of an analog, and I still am an analog person versus digital. So for example, I've never gotten on the gram. I don't have TikTok. I don't even own a TV. I do own a computer that I watch my DVDs on.
To be honest, I don't have TikTok and I don't watch TV either. Like, people have you watched this show? And I'm like, I literally don't watch TV.
Exactly. I mean, it's just commercials and propaganda anyway, right? So it's one of the ways I shut out the digital noise and just the incessant consumerism directed directives. So I listen to LPs and records. I have a DVD and a CD collection. I like to cook from scratch. I like to call my friends and family on the phone and have long conversations about nothing. In that way, I feel like I'm a little old fashioned, but I don't mind it because I think it's really protected my mental health, especially the more I hear about social media, the more leery I am. But so all this is to introduce, when I finally came to Reddit, my world changed. It was altered forever because I only discovered Reddit during COVID lockdown.
I think most people, at least for me, I also only discovered it during lockdown, I think, was when I really started.
Really? So, right. I remember, I think it was black, I don't know if it was black pilled. There were these women's subreddits.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Pink pill, black pill, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of those that were, in the ban, right? I kept reading people's comments. First of all, I always have loved advice columns. So Dear Abby, Carolyn Hacks, Elle's E. Jean, which is interesting to see that she's now one of the most successful litigants against the former would-be dictator Donald Trump, right? E. Jean Carroll. So I always have loved reading people's stories and write-ins. And so Reddit to me, of course, was just a candy box full of delicious treats. Some of them are poisoned, obviously, which is why I learned to stick to subreddits that were primarily for women. And the ones that were primarily for women, like 2X, Pink Pilled, and all the others, I kept seeing people talk about or mention in comments female dating strategy, or FDS for short.
Woo-woo.
Right? And so I went into Google, what is FDS? Reddit. Bink! And there it unfolded in all its glory. And I think I read everything within that first month, the manual, all of the side links, everything. It was if you want to participate, if you want to comment, you have to learn all of this first. And so the diligent student that I always have been, I did my homework. And during the lockdown, I've always been a feminist, but a reluctant one of those, I'm not like other girls feminists. So is it really feminist if you're not like other girls? Right. But always trying to come to grips with, my very conservative traditional background and what my reading and my life experience, was teaching me. So FDS was really where it sort of became the rubric where everything finally met and the heavens dawned and the clouds cleared before me. And I cannot tell you before you. It was a holy spiritual awakening.
The Lord revealed.
Yeah, the Lord.
The 10 Commandments on the slab.
The goddess appeared before me and I bowed down. So, oh my gosh. I mean, I still remember the joy and seeing every month. It was the membership was going up by tens of thousands every month. It was just exploding. And then, of course, when it got banned, I mean, I was always like writing, like, please don't ban me. You know, like, here's my internet that shows I'm a woman. And I was very diligent in making sure, like, because, it would go down or it would be like, invite only at various periods before they finally decided, right? Like, I remember being so anxious when it would go down because it really became like my lifeline during COVID lockdown.
I think a lot of women can resonate with that. And I think even I was banned at one point from subreddit. I think probably an error, but I think when, trying to create a female only space on a male dominated site like Reddit was a tremendous task. And how the mod team even managed to pull it off for as long as they did is just a true testament to their commitment to preserving that space, because it took hours and hours and hours of, moderation. And we had a huge team and even they were absolutely buried. So yeah, and I think, COVID was the time when everyone was shut in, and I think people could really reflect on their life and, what they wanted to do moving forwards, because you weren't able to go out. All you could do was just be alone with your thoughts. And for some people that was more positive and for others it was more negative. But I feel like a lot of women can really resonate with your journey to finding FDS, or at least I know I can.
So that makes me happy to hear because I mean, and then I started telling all my girlfriends, and of course, most of them are married or in long-term relationships, and they're very conventional. I mean, I'm a lone ranger here amongst my peers and my cohort, but I kind of always have been. So I've always been an odd little duck, but I've always been fortunate in that I've had good girlfriends who've always made sure I feel like I belong and like I have a place and, like my weirdness is welcome and it's viewed with affection as opposed to derision. And so that's the vibe I get from FDS girlies too, right? Like you can have your oddities and your quirks and maybe some radical opinions, but nobody's going to be coming down on you like, male Redditors would, for example. And I think you're right. We should be giving more flowers to the moderators, the OG moderators and writers of FDS, because that really opened my eyes to how women's free speech, even on the most, open of platforms, is still policed and patrolled and subject to the vilest of attacks, right, on the regular basis. And I think we take for granted that we're in the era of free speech when, in fact, it seems to me, we've never had less opportunities for free and open discussion amongst ourselves. I think we've really been policed and patrolled to within an inch of our lives. And now we have to go offline or go into podcasts or Substack in order to voice what we feel is happening.
Exactly. So, oh gosh. And so why did you decide to be insane and apply to be a podcast host?
Well, first of all, you're the only podcast I listen to. Although Lynn Lenz, a writer out of Iowa, just started a podcast and I've been listening to that. Otherwise, I don't truck with it,
You're forgiven.
Thank you. But I am loyal and I pay. I'm a patron, okay? I want this to continue. And so when I heard, your episode where you're like, we're accepting applications, I was like, dare I? I mean, I have things to say and I think I'm pretty intelligent and well-informed. Like I'm coming with citations, APA and MLA style, whichever one you prefer. I'm a voracious reader and I have a pretty good memory for names and titles. And I think that's something that we could always use more of, a bit more of an academic approach to our arguments and our discourses, just because we always want to be taken seriously, right? And I think too often in the world of even YouTube or podcasts, people they want to express their opinions, but they don't want to provide the foundational argument. And I was like, I've got all that. Why don't I just give it a shot? In fact, upcoming in the rest of our discussion, we're going to get into the ins and outs of this year.
Yes.
And one of the ins is the audacity. And that's what I told myself. I was like, Maria, you just go and have the audacity. You just give it a try and see, let the cards fall where they may. And now here we are.
We are very glad you did apply.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I just couldn't be more delighted. I'm so tickled. Like, even if this is all that happens, and this is still a dream come true, honestly. I feel like I'm in the presence of a minor celebrity, but who should be a major celebrity. Like, why are you not all over the world and the internet? Maybe, privacy is probably important to you, but
I'm just a random loser from England. Celebrity.
Remember, we're going to have the audacity, Savannah. Don't you dare self-describe. Yes!
True. I mean, I should be on par with, I don't know, Princess Diana in terms of popularity. There we go. Audacity.
At least Meghan Markle.
At least Meghan Markle. There we go. 2024 Audacity. I should be as popular as Meghan Markle, if not more so.
Thank you. Yes, I affirm you.
So that leads us nicely then onto, I guess, the meat and potatoes of this episode. And we are talking about the ins and outs of 2024. I've seen this list floating around on Instagram and I thought that looked quite interesting. I haven't seen that before. And I wasn't too sure because, like, going into 2024, I'm not, sure, like, how you felt about this, Rose, but I just went into 2024 feeling like this is going to be just a really, really good year. 23 was a decent year, at least for me anyway. Like, there was a lot of change and transition. So I changed jobs several times and I found myself transitioning into the role of basically, full-time carer for both of my parents who became quite unwell last year as well. So it was very bittersweet. But coming into 2024, I just feel quite optimistic. Like, there's so much opportunity and hope. I'm not sure how you feel about that, Rose.
I love hope. I think hope, we have to be aware of hopium,
Yeah.
But I feel there is a certain radical potential in holding on to whatever form of hope keeps you moving forward. Because remember, nothing pleases those in power more than the beaten down hopelessness of resigned masses.
Exactly. And I think that, especially seeing as we're sort of, I can't believe it's been almost 4 years since COVID now, but I think we are starting to see, and I don't know if you've also noticed this as well, Rose, but we're also starting to see, or at least I've been starting to see, like, FDS principles being embedded into wider dating principles out in the wild. So things like don't let him waste your time, or, is being said a lot more openly and freely, was perhaps, 2-3 years ago when it was still very much that the wonderful or just communicate advice.
I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah, there's definitely been like a paradigm shift in, male-female relations, which I'm totally here for because it's long overdue.
I'm absolutely 100% co-signing that. And also, I think one of the ways we can look for evidence to support this assumption or theory is that, have you not noticed how many more articles from major publications, David Brooks, New York Times, Forbes, and some of their financial writers, they're all talking about how women just need to settle and get married because that's how you have a healthy and happy society.
They're getting desperate. That's why they're getting desperate.
That's right. So I think that shows me, they're responding to a sort of groundswelling, and now it's reaching its way to the upper echelons, right? So I think there's some evidence there.
Definitely. So if we start with then the ins then, I mean, this is just a general list and it'll be interesting to see what our listeners think should be in their own list. But Rose and I started compiling this before the episode. So I guess the first in, for me anyway, is prioritizing self-care. I know that sounds really quite basic and cliche, but when I think about self-care, I'm not only talking about, luxury spa days or, using expensive bath bombs or whatever, even though that is, partially part of it. Like, I will admit, like, I have like an illegal amount of bath and shower products. So that's definitely, I love my smellies, exactly. It's just, there's like worse things I could be addicted to, so.
And you know what? Why can't we have our little frivolities, But I think you're referring to something even deeper, though, aren't you, Savannah?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, self-care is also about, prioritizing yourself, not just in, your official self-care or like pamper sessions, but in everyday life as well. And really becoming attuned to what it is you want and need, not just from yourself, but from other people, and having the confidence to go after that.
That's such a good point. I think the other people is really key because part of self-care is like we have to do it ourselves, but it's also learning we can and must allow others to care for us.
Agreed.
And that for me is very difficult. I think I've gotten this from you as well. Like, you're a giver, you're somebody who's very loving and caring. To take time and care for your ailing parents is the ultimate sacrifice of love, right? But it didn't sound like you hesitated for a second. And that is very telling about your character. But for example, when you do something like that, when you care for parents who are ailing, you need the neighbors to bring by some dishes of food that are prepared. You need somebody to run to the grocery store and pick you up some groceries and maybe bring you a bouquet of flowers just to brighten your day a little, right? And I think that's something as women that we almost feel we're not worthy or we're not deserving. And I think that's part of the shift of a healthier notion of self care writ large.
Completely agree. And, it's also about understanding that the fact that you have your needs and your wants, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a completely different question if the other person is able to meet that particular need or a want. But if they can't for whatever reason, that doesn't mean that that particular need or want is wrong. It just means that they can't meet it for whatever reason. And shifting my focus away from people potentially saying, no, and, me feeling like, I shouldn't have asked for it or I'm asking for too much to, but actually I've asked for it, it is something that is important to me. And if that person, can't provide it for whatever reason, that's fine. But that's not necessarily anything to do with me. That's more to do with them and whatever resource or capacity that they have to be able to provide in that moment as well. So it's also about not taking on other people's stuff as well.
Ooh, actually, that leads really smoothly into our next point, Savannah. And one of the other ends you mentioned was maintaining our standards and our boundaries. And so here, maintaining standards is even if I ask for something and it's not able to be given by such and such person, it doesn't mean these standards are invalid or not worthy of being met. It just means there has to be somebody else or there's some other way in which these standards can be met and maintained.
Exactly.
And boundaries, how do we maintain boundaries?
I think it's always useful every so often to do almost like an audit of your standards and boundaries to understand, why do I believe in this? Why do I believe in that? Why is this a standard for me? Why is this a boundary for me? Because one thing I've realized as I've become older and hopefully a bit more wiser is that you as a person will change. And as a result, your preferences will change as well. And sometimes previous beliefs are just not going to serve you anymore. And that is absolutely fine. I think it will be deeply problematic if you went from the ages of 18 to 64 and your beliefs and standards and boundaries were exactly the same. I think that is, that's indicative that something is very wrong there. And so it's always good to do that audit and to honestly, again, going back to self-care, to think about, okay, does this standard or belief still serve me? I'll give an example. So a standard for me is that every guy I date has to be taller than me. And I did actually think about it. Can I see myself with a shorter guy? The answer was still no. So that standard is still in place.
That's such an excellent example. What we're talking about, this pushback girls are getting and women are getting, right, is like, how dare you want a 6-foot tall, 6-figured Chad or Brad, right? And first of all, when did our standards around our romantic partners become so subject to what males say they should be, right? Isn't it not our standards?
I think that shift happened though when women became more comfortable vocalizing what their standards and boundaries are. And, it's almost like the feminist backlash is, whenever a woman states a boundary or a standard, no matter how mundane, even if it's something like, I don't want to come home from a full day of work and cook my husband a meal after we've both been at work all day and I'm shattered. For example, men and sometimes women, they join in as well. I should acknowledge that. Jumping in to say why she's being unreasonable. And ultimately, it goes back to what you said, Rose, about the concept of, free speech and women's speech, especially being under attack in that way.
And, here's what women need to realize. No matter what we say we want or don't want, it will be met with contempt and derision and stonewalling. That's their playbook. That playbook has not changed. There is feminist Lear Keith. She wrote a book called The Vegetarian Myth, Food Justice and Sustainability. And there was a YouTube clip she has about nonviolent direct action and how that can be applicable to the feminist movements. And in one of these pictures, she was showing the suffragettes of England in 1908 and pictures of them being force-fed during their hunger strike. Basically tortured, right?
Ooh.
And I was just thinking, that was barely 100 years ago. The right to vote has hardly even been enshrined for that long for us. And so I think our historical conscious tends to compress and forget that we have suffered so much and been tortured so much. And so to even dare ask for a man to brush his teeth or wash his ass.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
We've all read those. Can I ask, my husband hasn't brushed his teeth in 3 years. Can I ask him to visit the dentist? Like, dare I? Right.
I'm going to jump ahead because honestly, this has to be an out for 2024. We are not associating with Detty Pigs. This just has to just stop. Like,
Yep. We must shift the market. Market demands include good hygiene, right? And the self-care of our partner.
Like, Rose, this is just embarrassing. This even needs to be said out loud. Like, it's literally embarrassing, but yeah.
Floss your teeth, brush your teeth, bathe your genitals, with water and soap. Every day.
And a sponge. I mean, like, using your hands to spread the gel that's not getting you clean. You need to scrub that skin, like, scrub it.
You know what? We might need to have our own podcast on, like, appropriate hygiene. Because apparently it's up for discussion these days.
How to wash your body. No, seriously though, but I mean, as an aside, I generally don't think that a lot of people are generally taught, like, how to be fresh and clean. So maybe that will be a future episode one day.
Honestly, to continue this aside, and then we can get back to our list, which, because this also flows nicely into our next in, but I find it especially interesting, the notion of, like, hygiene and sanitation between race and class, right? Because I know, for example, the Black American community here in the United States has very stringent standards for hygiene and self-care. And yet there's still often, there's like the historical goo that will find any reason to say, your hair is this, or, you're doing that wrong, or we're not supposed to use shea butter, you're supposed to use, lanolin, what have you. The point is they're always being patrolled as if they don't know how to appropriately be clean. When if you look at a lot of, like, white Hollywood, and they talk about, like, oh, we don't bathe our kids, and, like, we think it's good for their immune system.
The Ashton and Mila.
Yes. And they're not the only ones, or, like, how many wealthy white Hollywood people are like, we don't believe in vaccines. Whereas, like, if you're on the south side of Chicago, for example, like, everybody, the free clinics are constantly overrun and overbooked because it's a matter of life or death in those communities. So I really think there are very interesting intersections around race and class when it comes to hygiene, but that could absolutely be its own episode. Let's continue on, though, with our next in. What is our next in, Savannah?
It's having more audacity. And, not just having any amount of audacity, but having the audacity of a male billionaire.
Yes, we want us all to have all the audacity in the world. We don't just want the audacity of a mediocre white man, or, as you noted, a guy who doesn't wash his ass. We want the audacity of a Jeff Bezos, of a Bill Gates, of a Donald Trump, Just look at them having all the audacity has gotten them.
I mean, and, like, when we talk about audacity, I'm not necessarily meaning it in, like, the brash, disrespectful, like, manner. I mean audacity in terms of taking bold risks, because that's, audacity has a dual meaning. It can mean being disrespectful, which a lot of the men we've just mentioned are, but also, if we look at what they do, they take very, very bold risks. So if we use Donald Trump as an example, him deciding to run for president, that was a very, very bold risk that he took that ultimately, and unfortunately to the misery of, billions around the globe, paid off in his favor. And I feel like women often, we can doubt our abilities and, doubt our perceptions and, doubt our own instincts as well. And just, like, having that audacity to be like, I'm going to take this risk. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, I'll still be okay. And to keep pushing forward is something that I wish for every woman, because your life will be totally transformed, when you start taking, more calculated risks.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. And, just as an example, look at me having the audacity to apply for this podcast position. Whether I get it or not, I never even thought I'd get past the first round. And yet here we are, and I'm recording with Savannah in 2024. Like, This is what the audacity gets you, girlies, okay? And I need you to internalize this, and I need you to manifest this, and I need you to meditate on this, because if there is one thing that women need, it is all the audacity.
It's just more audacity. Like, we have the ability, we have the talent, we have the intelligence, we have the wit, the humor, or whatever. And it's just really, really just like trying to take us to the next level by just being more audacious.
We lack nothing but the audacity. So that's what we're going to add into this mix going forward.
Love that.
Yes. Okay, so next up in our ins, financial literacy.
This one is a big, big topic. And again, this could be its own podcast episode, because it is such, like, finances for women, there could be such a disparity on so many levels between the financial situations of men and the financial situations of women. Some of it is partly due to things like sexism, so men on average tend to earn more money. Some of it can also be potentially down to life choices as well. And being financially literate isn't necessarily about earning loads of money. There are many people who earn a lot of money who are not very financially literate. It's also not about necessarily taking on the conventional financial advice. Being financially literate is being able to weigh up all the options, financial options, that are available to you, and making the best decision that is right for your particular circumstances. For example, there is a big debate in the UK, and I suspect around the world, even where you are, Rose, around, whether it's appropriate to rent or to get a mortgage or to buy a property. Now, for most people, getting a mortgage, it might be a good idea because it gives you security. You can get on the property ladder, build all that wonderful wealth, yada, yada. But, for some people, renting might actually be the better option because of their own individual circumstances. And being financially literate is being able to understand when perhaps conventional, financial advice, it may or may not apply to you as well.
It's true. We really haven't updated the financial rubric around housing to reflect our current circumstances, right? Because the housing that's tending to be built is higher income. Like in my neighborhood right here, I live in a relatively wealthy neighborhood, far wealthier than I actually should be in, but I found a steal of a deal on a studio, and I've just stuck out. I'm just hung on with my fingernails. But now I'm actually looking to buy because my concern is at some point the landlord is going to die. God bless him. He's old. He's been through multiple bouts of prostate cancer. He can only hold on for so long. And I was just looking at, there are some new buildings being built just a couple blocks from me, and they're going for the low price starting of $750,000 on up. And that is the kind of housing, if any, that is being constructed. Mixed income housing, elder care, mixed with like college dorm housing. None of this is being constructed. And so people are forced into this sort of false binary of mortgage, no mortgage, or precarity or some semblance of security, right? So financial literacy, I mean, this actually goes into what our next in is. Actually, it's the other one. Learning how to use your local library and its resources. This is your best friend if you want to learn about financial literacy and buff up on that, because I don't think that's not taught in any of our high schools or colleges.
No, and it's by design, because if you keep people financially illiterate for the most part, that's only going to benefit the uber wealthy, and people won't be able to realize when something is a bad deal. And especially, I don't know about you, Rose, but a lot of these financial gurus online, they just don't know what they're talking about half the time.
I was going to say, talk to your librarian and ask them what they might recommend if you're feeling uncertain.
Yeah. You need to go back to reading books. You're not going to find stellar, or you will rarely find quality financial advice from these internet financial advisors.
Yeah, don't go to YouTube. Don't go to TikTok. Go to the library.
Yeah, go to the library and actually read a book, because if these guys are actually successful at what they were doing, they would not be trying to make a struggle YouTube channel to tell other people how to become wealthy when they are not wealthy themselves.
Well, and if you do I know a lot of libraries have come a far way as long as it comes to filtering formulas. So for me, one thing I did is I went and I was women, finances, and I, narrowed it down to the last 5 or 10 years and just looked and saw what came up. If anything had reviews, sort of cross-checked against maybe any online presence or just learning about, their author bio to learn a little more. And that's how I started to compile a list. And I basically only read female advisors as far as financial literacy, because that they have a totally different take and understanding about the unique challenges that women face. Like, I can listen to Dave Ramsey, but he's coming from a heteropatriarchal construct, right?
And like Dave Ramsey, he's just full of shit. I think the debt snowball method is really good, but I mean, all the other stuff he says is very boomer. Like, very, if you work really hard, you can build generational wealth. Like, and it's not that straightforward anymore, unfortunately.
He's just like one of those classic, Christo patriarchs where like the Lord will provide if you just put your head down and you've got your little woman at home. It's like, what world are you in, sir? I think he's in Texas, so that makes sense. But so if you are going to the library and you're talking to librarians and you're even talking to your girlfriends, that's one thing I've been trying to do with my girlfriends. Like, what are you doing with a Roth IRA? Are you like doing mutual funds? What's your take on like a mortgage versus a high income savings yield? I'm trying to get myself up and running with that. And I wish I'd started sooner. And this is that proverb where like, when's the best time to plant a tree? 70 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. And so to all of our wonderful listeners, this is what I encourage you. It doesn't matter if you've lost out, quote unquote, on time. There's no better time than now to get going on that. And this ties into our next which is detoxing from social media. If you have a physical book in your hand, if you have a pile of books waiting for you to get through, and you don't have to read every word and every chapter, you can go through and see what chapter looks interesting to you. Maybe just read the intro or the conclusion, and you can tell if it's going to be applicable to your sort of circumstances. But it is time for us to put things down from our hands, unless it is a book or some sort of, academic journal, and just be done and give that brain time to detox. Come back to the world of grass and of slow clouds moving across the horizon.
Basically, go outside and get off the computer.
Go outside and touch grass.
But honestly, like, it does, like, I didn't realize, because I took a unplanned hiatus from X I think from end of October to like early December. And I just realized how, like, I just didn't miss being on that website at all. And even now, even though I'm a bit more active on it again, but I try to limit my time on there, because it's just like, it almost feels like they just put like the worst of the worst in front of you.
They do. It's a formula. There is an algorithm that they have discovered, which is what is driving all of these like far right tater tot bros on YouTube and other, because it drives the most engagement because it's outrage clicks. And that's how people start down those paths, right? And Elon Musk has noted this, and now he is in bed with fascists, because that is how capitalism continues to align itself with power and wealth.
100%.
Mm-hmm. Good for you. Well done.
It's definitely important to just to go offline, I think, from time to time, and to reconnect with the actual world that you live in.
And turn to your other women.
Mm.
Start building female collectives. And this is our next point, and the point after that.
Female supremacy.
Female supremacy. It's real and it's here. It is ascendant. And it's time we all start to realize that and to continue to push this forward. Because listen, we're always going to have pushback from the status quo and from, evil mustache twirling patriarchs.
I'd say like struggle beard patriarchs now, because a lot of them can't even grow beards due to low testosterone. But
it's so true. All these plastic phthalates and whatnot in our waters. Oh my gosh, it's a nightmare. And so if you can, make sure you're drinking filtered water, make sure that you're looking at the shampoos and the moisturizers. That's part of the self-care. Like, try to keep out as many, toxins as you can, because it's a poisonous world out there. And this is why we need other women, because other women restore us. Other women help us heal. Other women bring us joy. And they also help us be the best version of ourselves. And isn't that what we want in 2024?
100%. And, when I say also supporting other women, I don't mean yas queening when they're making objectively bad choices. I mean, supporting other women can also be in the form of not necessarily calling them out, but, pushing back if they're saying something that is misogynistic, or, sharing, good resources on like feminism with them, providing, they're receptive as well. It isn't, I feel like FDS was sometimes accused of being like a mean girls club because we just refuse to mollycoddle women who are making bad choices. And sometimes that is, the best support that you can give somebody is to actually say like, hey, this isn't a great idea. This is what you can do differently. Doesn't mean that you hate them, but it sometimes means that you just that you want them to do better.
I mean, have you ever had a friend tell you like, hey, this guy you're seeing, I don't know, he's just said some really off things, or they're like, I see the way your brother is treating you and I don't think that's okay. If you've ever had a friend say that to you, they're a true friend because they're sticking their neck out to show you how much they care. And that's the kind of friend I want, I don't want just like a yes woman. I want somebody, if you weren't lucky enough to have a wonderful mother like I did, and it sounds like you have a really good one too, Savannah. I just had the sweetest, most loving woman, and she had her issues because she's human, but really she only wanted what was best for me. And that is the kind of energy I want us to bring to our other friends. If you're making the wrong choices, like your mom would say something to you if she had that sort of maternal care instinct. Are you sure? Have you considered? You're not coming at it with like this audacious brashness where you're like, I'm shaming you. No. That's not the energy. The energy is, I love and care about you. Are you loving and caring for yourself with these choices?
Agreed. I mean, sometimes I'll caveat that a bit by saying, like, I do feel like shame needs to be brought back in small doses in 2024. I just feel like...
Savannah, don't get me started. Oh, we forgot to put that on our ends. I have been saying for over 15 years, we need to bring shame back. I love to shame.
We need to bring back shame.
I love to shame people when it's called for. And I'm not coming at it from like a place of malignancy or maliciousness.
No.
You have done something that should be shamed. I am going to be happy to shame you.
You need to be like, because I completely agree, because that's the reason, why we now have things like kink shaming in quotation marks, when people are horrified that, that you're sharing your kinks unprompted. Like, I do feel like a healthy dose of shame, it also maintains the social order, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Now,
absolutely. People, we live in a society. Okay, I don't need to know about your furry proclivities in your private bedroom. Okay, and so don't they say this on FDS? My kink is kink shaming.
Oh yeah. But I mean, I guess that's the only thing. My kink is kink shaming, and my kink is also financial domination of men. Weirdly enough, though, those are the two most. But like, weirdly enough, though, those are the two most maligned kinks within
funny how that works, right? And this leads to what we're talking about. Like, how much free speech do we have these days when we're not allowed to shame people when they're being inappropriate, right?
100%. It's just absurd.
We live in a society. Okay, you want all the benefits. That means there are some social norms and mores that we must adhere to, and that's just how it goes. I didn't make the rules,
Exactly. And it's just, I'm not saying we should do like the Handmaid's Tale and be chasing people with a bell saying shame, 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 unless it's really bad.
I mean, I do have some bells, but but people like to carry handguns around here. So maybe but I'm definitely happy to tisk. I'll tisk. I'll shake a finger like an old school marm. And it's surprisingly effective because people aren't used to being shamed. They're like, I don't know what to do, but I feel a certain way. I'm like, yes, you feel ashamed, and that is how you should feel.
And you should feel
it, feel all of it, learn from it.
It's just like when people in BDSM say, I was shaving my kink, I'm like, well, yeah, you should feel ashamed.
Those were the right people. You should thank them.
The emotion you're feeling is correct. So yeah, just small healthy doses of shame and back to being and just uplifting women as well.
So refreshing. Absolutely. I'm 100% in agreement. Are we going to move on to our final in?
Yes, it will be FDS. So
the meanest female dating
only podcast on the internet. As I'm sure you've all aware, and I'm sure you've all missed us terribly. Ro and I took a a hiatus towards, thank you. We took a hiatus towards the quarter 4 of 2023 because life took over, and I actually clocked that this would be the 4th year of the podcast because we started in
Wow. Flowers, full flowers. You've made this happen for 4 years. That is an achievement.
Yeah, actually, we started recording in November 2020, released the first episode in March 21. So it's been almost about 4 years in the making. But we are keen to really get the podcast back on the road, and recognizing our time limitations. It's also, again, part of the reason why we put out a call for new podcast hosts, not only because we both feel like we are now broken records, but it would also be good to get a fresh perspective, with hosts who are able to dedicate time to producing the podcast every week or twice a week, whilst like Ro and I focus on hopefully expanding FDS and making it bigger than it is. So we have hopefully a couple of, touch wood, big projects in the pipeline that we hope to...
Are there some things in anticipation that could be happening?
There is.
Oh!
I can't say too much. I think that's like the
Yay!
standard like Hollywood line. I can't say I can't say too much about this right now. It's coming soon. But yeah, we have some really, really big plans for the, not just the podcast, but the brand. So we're hoping that will really take shape in 24.
More than ever, Savannah, like you were saying, I do think there is this, what I called it a groundswell. There is a paradigm shift that is happening. And the more we can get FDS out there, the more well received. Because I've been seeing on there's a YouTuber I really like, Manifestel, the Spoiled Girly Support Group. I got to give her a shout out. She's fantastic. And sometimes she'll feature like TikToks of women talking about feminism or talking about their relationship within the confines of it. And I've never seen or heard so much in my entire life of women talking to one another and really starting to look at the structural underpinnings that are keeping us in chains, right? So I cannot wait to hear from you and Ro with your new initiatives. That's really exciting to hear.
Yes. And, one thing that made me almost do a double take was like when I venture into the cesspit that is Reddit, even though the FDS subreddit has now been inactive almost 2 years now. I think it disappeared in May 22 in terms of being active. You still get scrotes like mentioning the female dating strategy. So it's like we're still living like rent free in their minds, even though we've moved off the platform. And to me, that just speaks to the impact that the subreddit and the brand, had and continues to have on the male scrote consciousness, which is exactly what we wanted.
It was a beautiful, beautiful wave of righteous female fury. And that was like very poetic and very succinct. That's the other part of, getting messages out is like, you don't want to ramble on like a podcast bro who is moving into our out section on the list. Podcast bros talking over each other, rambling on, never making the point, just a chain of sentences that never go anywhere. They just want to hear the sound of their own voice. It's out.
Just like being like misogynist. And also I feel like a lot of women, because I unfortunately like Twitter/X pushes this stupid podcast onto my feed every time I open it, where this podcast bro interviews women from like OnlyFans or women who are feminists or like who are conservatives, basically to just humiliate them. And we need to stop giving those sorts of podcasts any sort of oxygen
whatsoever.
Yeah.
No eyeballs. No, it's rage bait. They're trolling us. Do not engage. Oh, and you know what? That's also on our out list, isn't it?
Yes.
We're not feeding the trolls. 2024, what else is out? Feeding the trolls.
And you're not debating your standards or your boundaries with anyone. This is mainly like more for people who come across people who regularly like to debate their boundaries, whether that be on social media or offline, because it's not like, basically I always say the people in your life that meet your standards and can honor your boundaries, they're not the ones who are complaining about them. So if somebody's complaining about your standards, just know that you're incompatible and just walk away.
And know that they benefited from you not having any.
Exactly. And that's a really, really good point, Rose. That's a really good point, Rose, is that you have to think about when, somebody is complaining to you saying that your standards are too high or your boundaries are this or that, you need to think who is benefiting from this message, because it's not going to be you, it'll be them.
Moving on, what else is on our outs list, Savannah?
We've got Stanley Cups and other consumer-based water accessories. I don't know what that is, Rose. What did you mean by that, Rose?
What I mean by that is, it has become a status symbol to have a water cup, a water mug by the Stanley brand, and various other ones that are from Starbucks or Target. Like Target had some Hearts special edition for Valentine's Day water mug that there was like a run on the store. There was basically a stampede. I'm not lying. And all of this is based around like this stupid industry that's sprung up around water and having like the best, coolest water accessories. You only need one reusable water bottle. That's it. Make sure you clean it regularly. And if you want, maybe even I have one for home, one for the car, and one for the office or the library. Okay, so I don't have to be constantly carrying it to and fro. And like, so maybe max 3, but we don't need any more bottles than that. And if you want to have a coffee mug or two as well, throw that on in there. But like, enough of this. Water is free and it's readily available. Why are we manufacturing more things to carry it around with when we already have all of the vessels that we already need? That's my only point about that, right?
Okay, so that is an out.
That's an out. And as long as being out with, we're talking about not debating your standards, not feeding the trolls. We're not going to go on low effort dates.
Yeah, walk dates, coffee dates.
Not going to go. Are you kidding me? Do you know how much I spend in skincare on a year-to-year basis?
Yeah, it's not.
My socks cost more than a coffee. Because fuck inflation, but it's true.
I don't even drink coffee, so it wouldn't even be coffee. It'll be water for me, and I'm definitely not leaving my house to go and drink water with a man that I don't know.
Exactly. So, ladies, what is out this year for all of us? Low effort dates. Don't do them. That's part of self-care.
And just generally low effort and just like low vibrational situations and people as well. I think we know when, whether that be a friend or whether that be a job perhaps where you feel undervalued and unappreciated. It's just, 2024 could be the year where that potentially changes for you, hopefully.
Actually, that's interesting. I like that nuance you just added because I just got back today I have a friend who has a husband and 2 young boys, and the only time we get together is when I go to their house on their schedule. And I just get a little tired of being stuck in their house and their 4 walls and like having all the attention on the children. I understand that, there are certain years in a life where this is pretty common, but I want us to do more, like, let's go out to a park. Let's go out and get dim sum. Today we went out and got bubble tea. And it was such a nice change of pace. And I was so happy that they were willing to do it. I could tell it exhausted them. I could tell it was a real ordeal, because the boys are still relatively young. But I also know they want these children to learn the importance of friendship and of how to, comportment in public areas, right? We need to teach our children this. And so I think it's easier to go out with 2 kids when there are 3 adults than when it's just 2. So this is one of my pushes in our friendship is like, I need you to show me a little more effort instead of it always being on your terms in order for the friendship to continue to thrive. And so I was really proud of myself because it took us 2 months to make this happen. And I just kept, every time they kept inviting me over and I was like, we can go out and do this. Why don't we go out and do this? And it, it was just no, no, no. And finally today it happened. And I was like, see, Maria, this is what happens when I didn't debate the standards. And I wasn't, fractious about it. I just maintained that this was a standard in order for you to see me for a visit. So look at us, off to a great start already.
Yeah, I really love that for you. And, that's
you.
a very, very good, case study of how expressing your needs is not always a bad thing. And people who care about you and, want to be in your life and be a positive fixture in your life, they will make efforts to accommodate that.
That's hard for me. I don't know about you, but that's a real skill that I'm.
It is hard,
but it's important.
Yeah, definitely.
You matter and you count. And so your worth is that you can also put these boundaries down and these standards down. And this also goes in with another out, which is actually our first out, which was, again, and this is me citing Manifestel from Spoiled Girly Support Group. We are not dealing with below bare minimum, low effort males.
Yeah, just no. That's just, if you have the relationship talk and he's like hesitating about whether to commit, he's out.
Oh, is it your birthday and he picked you up beef jerky from 7-Eleven? Out.
Out. If you can't remember your birthday, he's out.
Out. Is it Christmas and he got you a video game for himself?
Out.
Absolutely out. I don't think we even need to debate this one, do we? Do we, Savannah? Really?
Do you know, even like, for example, lingerie. I used to work in a bra shop.
Nice. That's a good skill right there.
It was good, but the amount of men that would
Oh no,
be buying lingerie for their wives in completely the wrong size, because the next day the wives will be back returning the bra because it is completely the wrong size. For some reason, like, men seem to think that every woman is like 34 double D, when there are many, many more price sizes beyond that.
Okay, how about they just bring one of their wives' bras to the store if they're so unsure?
I think with that though, it's like a lot of women are wearing the wrong bra anyway, so it doesn't help. So it's almost like there's two points of failure there. But it's just hilarious how men think that lingerie is a good gift when they just clearly don't have a clue what they're shopping for or even what to look for.
Also, you know what? If you want to get lingerie, get it for yourself, bro. Why don't you sashay out in some spangled sports shorts? Okay, let me see you put some
Calvin Klein's tighty whities.
Yeah. Let me see some pasties with little tinsel hanging down. Shake it like you mean it. You know, if you want lingerie, go ahead, but make sure it's for yourself.
It's for yourself. That's a good, yeah, exactly. So.
And you know, really, you wrote down scrotes, that's what a below bare minimum low effort male is. That's a scrote, and we're not. And this year and forevermore, out.
We're not dealing with them, and we can see them getting desperate as well, as again the discourse is shifting away from, slowly but surely, away from sort of demonizing women for having standards to women actually realizing that, yeah, having standards actually feels really good, and it will serve as a way to keep the, you know, not just the men, but the people in your life who don't deserve to be in there. It will keep them away.
Ladies, it is your God-given right. It is your goddess-blessed right to have whatever and however many standards you require for your happiness and your health. Point blank. Savannah, we did it. We got to the end of our ins and outs for 24 list. Woo! We did it.
And I hope that you can take forward any all the positive energy and luck into 2024 and make it the year that you truly want it to be. So yeah, let us know. So that's our show. Let us know what your ins and outs for 2024 are. We'll be keen to read all about them.
Let's get the conversation started. Yes.
Get the conversation started. Do check us out on our social media. We are still barely hanging on to X, but you can find us at @them.strat. We are also on our personal X accounts as well. And for all you scrotes out there, you are definitely out in 2024.
Die mad.
See you next week.